Among countless bodies, soldiers, and comrades, he alone stands, and can only watch. The giant he thought dead speaks, noting that it didn't calculate that there would be such a strong human. This giant is named Ahayut, and after he suddenly popped up in the Empire 20 years ago, along with other two giants, they destroyed everything in their path, for no apparent reason. Because of him, more than half of the Empire turned into a mass grave, yet he still dares live after all this? Ahayut tells him not to worry, as soon he will return to his side. He notes that it's good then, as his dear friends will wait for him on the other side. One was torched because of an extremely angry dragon, and the other was sealed for eternity by a mighty mage called Lorahan. Doesn't he get it? They lost. Ahayut tells him to not cover his words with sweetenings, as the children of the star share senses. He knows their opponents were also eliminated, and it means that strong people like himself no longer exist on this world. He notes that he's still alive and kicking, so what is he babbling about? Ahayut says that he shouldn't hope for much, as he feels his time is reaching an end. However, he's quite glad, as if he realized his skills and put body and soul into training, he would have become too large of an obstacle to deal with. He tries to retort this, but he knows that he had a life not worth living that much, so he should just die. With his final moments, Ahayut congratulates him for being a great human, and he should be proud. But soon, his world will be engulfed by the starlight, and disappear entirely. He cuts off his head in one clean swing, leaving him alone. Things have already happened as they did. What can he possibly do now? With heavy breath, he walks around the battlefield, and thinks of his comrades, and the cherished memories he made with them all of this time. Among a pile of bodies, he spots one of his friends, and wonders what kind of pride they had to let themselves fight to this extent. They should have noticed that they aren't on the same level and lived. He closes his eyes, and wonders why only his sword worked on a giant that could deflect the Empire's strongest sword aura. If he did it some other way, if he only knew about this, they wouldn't have died a dog's death. But now, nothing can be done. Suddenly, he hears someone talking, and he walks towards it. He is quite surprised to see the great commander, Adashan, still alive, although barely. He tells her that for someone of her status, she shouldn't be like this. She says otherwise, and tells Ronan that he's a corporal, so he isn't keeping appearances either. But what's more important right now, is Ahayut dead? Ronan confirms it, and notes that his body isn't far away from here. Tears roll down Adashan's face, and she thanks him for doing this. Ronan says that if she's that grateful, she should listen to his request at least. Usually, soldiers like this are either abandoned here or buried randomly, but he wants them cleaned up and treated well. Adashan says that he looks more alive than her. So shouldn't he be the one to do that? He begins coughing up more and more blood. He is definitely not more alive than her, as he could die at any second. He was a fool and in turn fooled around, but it still feels quite unfair that he will die. Adashan asks what he wants to do if he were to live, and he says that he would do lots and lots of things. But now, the only thing he can think about is the academy. That big and ugly bastard kept reminding him of it, as his sister's only wish was to see him at the academy. But soon, he will be reunited with them. Adashan tells him to not lose hope, as a search party will soon be here. But he doesn't believe he will be holding out much longer, as he's on death's door. The rain suddenly stops, surprising them both. The ground begins to shake uncontrollably, and when Ronan looks in the sky, he spots a being with 8 wings. Behind it, countless giants are ready to attack. Adashan's whole world is in shambles, as in the end, she couldn't save the world this time either. Ronan snaps her out of it, and tells her this isn't the time for thinking, as she should hurry and use telekinesis on him so that he can fight. She's very surprised he's still willing to fight in this situation, and he notes that even if he dies, he will not give those bastards the reward of killing him while he's still. She finds his valiance quite comforting and thinks that this man was the missing piece in all of this. She gets up and suddenly kisses him as to transfer something from her mouth. She whispers something to him, and Ronan asks what she means, especially in this type of situation. Adashan notes that if he ever sees her again, he should tell her to not do anything dumb and become a tailor, as she always wanted to try. Those words are the last of humanity. As with them, the whole world is wiped out. The blue orb glistens, and Ronan wakes up screaming for her. But she's nowhere to be seen, as he has woken up in his hometown Nimbutan. This is his first day of regression. He sits under a tree's shade, and can't believe that Adashan's last words were true. What she told him was that this orb that she gave him allows the person holding it to regress back in time. That's how she, a simple tailor woman, became the Grand Commander. The orb allows a person to regress a total of 4 times, and she already used 3 of those, so only 1 regression remains. She's handing it to him, as she believes he's the key for humanity's salvation. He needs to sharpen his abilities as much as possible, and the best place for this would be Filian Academy. Ronan slams his head in the tree and wonders just what he's supposed to do by himself, even if he has this much time. Suddenly he remembers that this is in fact the past, so he rushes to see his older sister. While running towards his home, he spots that some punks are bullying a child by tying him upside down. That's when he notices that the child isn't held up by a rope, but rather by magic. Such a person would be invaluable in the battlefield. To think they were in a countryside town like this. Come to think of it, around this time, he's sure they were here as well. The person holding the child up thinks that he didn't want any of this, and something bad will certainly happen to that poor kid soon. He begs them to stop, as he doesn't have any money, as his mother's medicine is too expensive. The bully notes that is not for him to worry about. He slaps him constantly, and says that if he wanted to be a filial son like this, he should have earned more money. He tells the guy with magic to put the kid at the top of the 3, as he hasn't come to his senses quite yet. He tries to refuse, but the bully says that he's acting like a girl, as it's not like they are hanging him or something. He should shut up and do as he says. Asel wonders why things became like this. Was it perhaps wrong to learn magic? He only wanted to show everyone that he's good at something, so he needs to tell this bully that he can't do it. But he's too scared to. He still finds the courage to try, but that's when someone hits him with a stick over the head. Ronan is the perpetrator, and tells them to stop, as that child will die if things continue like this. The kid falls, and the bully is extremely mad at Asel for letting him go. He tries to defend himself, but Ronan gets in front, as he has to talk with him about something. With the bully being quite angry, he's getting ignored. Where did he learn telekinesis magic? Asel notes that he learned it from a grimoire she bought from a peddler. He's quite surprised Asel became this good with such a cheap book, so if he trains, he will certainly become extremely powerful. That's when the bully draws his sword, as he has had enough of people ignoring him. It seems that he's acting this way because he let him win that day. But now, he will teach him manners. Ronan wonders how this guy managed to get a real sword, and notices his posture is extremely bad. But he's strong, so things like this should work around these parts. Naturally, with him, they will not. Although his body is much younger, what was imprinted into him while he was a disciplinary soldier remains. Battle sense. The bully notes that it must be his lucky day, as he was going to make sure he wouldn't be able to lift a spoon for his whole life. Since it became like this, he should drop to his knees instantly and beg, as he will let him go with only an arm being cut off. Fair deal, right? And if he somehow dies, he will make sure his sister is treated well. By him, that is. Ronan asks if he just talked about his sister, and the bully laughs and confirms it. Every time he sees her, he thinks of how great her body is. With one angry swing, Ronan takes his ear clean off. The pain takes a while to register, but when it does, he cowers in fear and pain. Ronan comes closer to him and asks if he really wants to die today. The bully's friends wonder how he managed to cut off his ear with a mere stick, and Ronan demands they leave with this bastard in tow, lest they want to become like him. They will also leave behind the money they stole, as well some more for ruining his mood. They can only agree. When they leave, Ronan gives the bullied kid all of the money, as he only needs the sword. He also shouldn't worry about their bullying anymore, as they won't have the confidence to wander around like this anymore. He thanks him profusely once again, and Asel grabs their attention. He also apologizes, as he knew that what he did was wrong, and he shouldn't have, even though Hans threatened him. He apologizes again and again, but the bullied kid sighs, and notes that he was crying like this the first time he was dragged here. When he saw him, he only thought that they were in the same situation, so he shouldn't blame himself, as it's not his fault at all. With that, he leaves, and Ronan looks at her, as apparently, he's the only one that knows she's a girl somehow. He asks her if she remembers that they had some business to talk about, and she confirms it. He notes that they will be meeting in 4 days, as he's busy right now, so they will meet then. Oh, and if he thinks of not coming? She knows what will happen, right? Asel is quite puzzled by this whole interaction. He arrives at his sister's door with some flowers, as he remembered she liked flowers. But is this perhaps too much? He turns away as he thinks he's doing too much, and that's when she opens the door, and is glad he's back. While he was a disciplinary soldier, he thought to himself 1,000 times, What does he say to her when they see each other again? Should he apologize for leaving without a word? Or tell her how much he missed her? He thought about it very often. But those things could only be said by the soldier Ronan. All that he can say now is that he's back. Iris, his sister, prepares him a meal, and is extremely glad that her cold brother actually gave her flowers. She asks if he wants more to eat, but he notes she's already given him plenty. Ronan also asks how old she will be this year, and she notes she will be 22, but why does he ask? He excuses this question as simply forgetting, and notes that if she's around that age, there are 10 years until those giant bastards come. She feels his forehead as to check for a fever, and he notes that she's still the same as she remembers, bright, kind, and warm. She's making him wish that this moment could last forever, but he isn't allowed this luxury, as he's the only one who can protect her and the world. He removes her hand and notes that he has something important to tell her. He was actually thinking of joining the academy soon. She is extremely glad he has come too, and rushes to get something out of a hidden place. A pot full of gold, saved especially for a day like this. He finds her amazing, as this is no small amount of money, but although he appreciates it deeply, this much won't do. Iris wonders what he's talking about, and that's when he says he wants to join the Imperial School, Philian Academy. She screams in shock, which can be heard even outside. The Philian Academy is the Empire's best educational institution. It holds the continent's most outstanding teachers, and combined with the Imperial family's generous funding, this place is sure to give anyone who goes there the finest education. It's prestigious enough to be called a factory of heroes, as many have come from it. Adishan, the great commander, Swordmaster Shulafin, and the worst criminal, the Winter Witch. The guys from Philion were quite useful during the war, so he understands why Adishan mentioned it to him. However, being so famous is also an issue, as its fees and entrance standards are quite heavy. He also didn't expect that reaction from his sister, but he will show her the results. He goes to the meeting spot he established with Acel, who came only because he said that he won't let her go if she didn't come. Ronan notes that they will be busy tonight, as there's something he wants to test her on. It's nothing much, though. All she needs to do is lift him as high as she can. She's surprised he requested this, as it's quite dangerous. Ronan tells her that it's not all that, so the only thing she needs to do is listen to him. He will not die from it, so she shouldn't be scared. She begins using her telekinesis, and rises Ronan high in the air, who thinks that this is much better than he initially expected. Although its stability and height is lacking, this feeling is quite familiar, as during the battle with a Hayyut, what allowed him to fight equally with that giant freak was telekinesis. It's a rare ability, even among mages, so that means she's going to become the most important thing needed for his battle against him. This start is quite lucky to begin with. Acel notes that it's becoming difficult to hold him, and he urges her to hold a little while longer, as he has something to check. He will be coming down himself, and with those words, he cuts Acel's mana, and lands perfectly. She's shocked he just did that, and asks what he did exactly. Ronan shrugs it off as it being nothing, only some acrobatic movement he's been able to do for a while. That's not what she was asking about, though, but Ronan urges her to keep her mouth shut, as he also doesn't know much about it. However, this might be the reason his sword worked on that guy in the first place. He can take things slowly, however, as there's something that needs to be done. He hands Acel a bag, and says that she needs to follow him. As before the moon disappears, there's something they need to do. This adventure might become the first page of Ronan's biography, the Empire's greatest history, and in general book. Ronan tells her where they are going, and she's quite unsure about their destination. He asks if she doesn't want to, but that isn't the issue. He has talent and a knack for martial arts, but she doesn't know anything. Plus, she's quite cowardly and timid. Ronan, in turn, asks if she really wants to live like that, wasting her innate talent on humoring punks. Is that truly the way she wants to live? And yes, she does have idiotic sides too. She's cowardly and timid, easily becomes a crybaby from just about anything, and also a plain loser. But all of this is fine, as she can change from now on. She shouldn't dally around too much, as the time that passes now cannot be taken back, and one day, she will come to regret it. Like he did in his past life. He hopes that changed her mind, but she finds this as him worrying about her, which she's quite glad for. Ronan notes that he won't force her into anything, and turns his back away. But she says that she will come with, as she wants to change as well. She will go to the academy with him, so he only needs to show her what's needed. Ronan smiles, and notes that this is the first time she's acting this way, so they should start her next objective. He smiles sinisterly, as everything is going just as he planned it to. They come up to something, and she's quite shocked at her first objective. Her opponent, who can bring out her true skills, is a lunar goblin, and the leader of a pack at that. Isn't it great? But they shouldn't waste any more time and get started already. The lunar goblin is a type of creature that appears around this area quite frequently, and they can be differentiated from other normal goblins by their yellow skin and disfigured bodies. But the thing about these types of goblins is that they go absolutely crazy over gold and other valuables. Due to this, they often ambush merchants to steal such treasures, and when they gather enough, they put all of their stolen goods in one area and hold a festival, on a night with a full moon particularly, just like today. Asel fears the worst, and Ronan confirms her suspicions. This night, they are going to steal of their valued treasure. She says that she's never heard a whisper about the goblins holding a festival revolving around treasure like this. So how did he know? He notes that he has his ways of knowing things, as he can't just tell her he saw them in his past life. He would sound crazy. But that doesn't matter now, as all she needs to do is use her telekinesis ability and move all of the treasure into their bag, as the goblins are dozing off right now. Simple, right? Asel says that it doesn't sound easy at all, and if something goes wrong and they wake up, what will they do then? Ronan doesn't lie, and notes that if that were to happen, things wouldn't be pretty at all. She urges him to rethink this plan if that is the case, but he thinks that she's too much of a coward. They aren't doing this because they can, as they need two things in order to get into Philion. First and foremost, they need money, so that they can afford that insane tuition fee. Secondly, real experience, as this is much more important than money. As she probably knew already, Philion is filled with aristocrats who have received the most elite training possible from birth. If she wants to win against people like them, there is only one real way: gain experience by risking their lives. Those goblins seem like the perfect opponents, as they gain cash, but also some experience. Two birds with one stone, as they say. Does she perhaps have a better and more grandiose idea? She confirms that she in fact does not, and Ronan notes that they should start right now. Little by little, the treasure and valuables are slowly being dragged into their bags. Asel is concentrating very hard, and Ronan instructs her calmly. Eventually, the last bag gets filled up, and he congratulates Asel for doing a good job while also gaining some experience. Wasn't it easy? Asel says that they indeed managed to do it, and he thinks that he wasn't that confident in her abilities, but she adapted quite quickly. She's much better at this than he originally thought. He has found a real nice minion to do his bidding. Ronan says that with these bags filled up, they should get going, as there isn't anything left for them here. They should head back before anything goes wrong. That's when two men who are chasing a bird start screaming through the forest for it, which wakes up the goblins, who become extremely mad goblins, as their precious treasure has disappeared. They all get up and search for the thieves, but it doesn't take long to find them, as Ronan and Asel didn't manage to get out of the area in time. All of them charge the thieves, and Asel is ready to pass away from how scared she is. She falls to her knees, and Ronan notes that he knew things were going too well for this situation. Asel suggests they throw the bags at them and run away, but Ronan is having none of it. How does she expect to pay that tuition without this? Earn it? She tries to say that this is not the important thing right now, but she doesn't get to finish, as the goblins are extremely close. Ronan analyzes the sword, and notices that it's made quite cheaply, so it should withstand about 15 attacks at least. However, there are 30 of them. One jumps to him, and he's still thinking. 15 attacks? That's plenty. He cuts off the heads of 3 with one single strike. Now he only has 14 attacks left. Birds scream throughout the forest, while Ronan takes care of the last goblin. Asel can only stare in shock, as she can't hope to explain what she just saw. He decapitated 3 with a single strike, and for the horde rushing afterwards, he disappeared, and appeared again in half a second. He is extremely powerful, but to think he would create such a spectacle. He asks her to stop spacing around so much, and she apologizes. Ronan notes that she has nothing to feel sorry about, as they need to get their stuff and leave. They are going home. While doing that, they find the bags quite uncomfortable, as they are pretty heavy, given the loot inside of them. Ronan notices that his muscles are sore from that scuffle with the goblins. Is it perhaps because he's still growing? When they go back, he needs to do some rigorous physical training. Asel wonders if he might know what that loud shout was that tipped them off to the goblins. He notes that it's uncertain, but it was definitely someone crazy, as you would have to be as such to scream in this forest. Someone draws his bow behind them and shoots an arrow directly at Asel. Ronan catches it, and she realizes what happened, but where could it have come from? Ronan wonders if this god-forsaken forest is cursed, or are they just plain unlucky? He asks the people who shot the arrow who they are, and they notice that these are kids, not goblins. They apologize, but it's clear that their intentions aren't as pure as they would like to present, as their eyes are on the treasure in their bags. Ronan notices their suspicious attitude, and their predatory eyes, so they should stop talking nonsense and answer him properly. Who are they? They are both surprised by his reaction, and the short-haired one apologizes for not introducing themselves while coming closer to him. He pulls out a knife and claims that they are Caliboro. Ronan keeps calm and grabs his hand swiftly. He manages to knock his attacker out in one strike, and he seems to know that name from somewhere. The other charges in, and Asel musters up the courage to use her powers to stop him and tell Ronan that there's another behind him. He congratulates her for doing this and kicks the knife out of the attacker's hand. He catches it, and in not even a second, he slashes him everywhere. The attacker and his body took a while to process what happened, but there's no saving for him, as he dies in an explosion of blood. Asel cowers away and asks if that guy really is dead. He confirms it, as he won't let anyone who tried to kill him live. It's only fair, right? And didn't she hear? These guys are Caliboro. She asks what they are, and he's happy to explain. They partake in poaching, kidnappings, and human trafficking. This group does every crime under the sun, and thus, they have gained the reputation of the Empire's most evil poaching group. So, if he wasn't here, her organs would have been harvested and buried somewhere. Knowing who these people are and letting them live is a crime in and of itself. She needs to understand that. The bag that they had with them suddenly starts moving around, and Ronan wonders what can be inside of it. Asel thinks that it's most likely a poached animal, but to confirm they open the bag up. Blue eyes beam out of the bag, and a blue bird comes out. They are both quite surprised, and Ronan wonders what this chicken is. It watches them from above, and Asel finds it quite pretty, as it's her first time seeing a blue bird like this one. He notes that he also hasn't seen one before, and spots that it's shackled with Caliboro's trap. This special shackle disturbs the prisoner's mana and restricts their movements quite a bit. He thought that these guys use these things as a last resort, or when catching mighty creatures. Is this tiny bluebird one? A rune pops up behind it, and it strangely starts speaking, spooking Asel. Ronan calms her down, as this is only communication magic. However, it was able to talk with them as soon as it came out of the bag. So, is the bag able to block mana, perhaps? Ronan speaks, and says that he's most likely the owner of this bird, right? The person says that he's right, and his name is Varen, and is currently researching fantastical beasts at the institution. He is that bird who goes by the name of Maprez, Guardian. He tried countless times to communicate, but it didn't seem to work. So he was thinking of actually making a report, but he's quite relieved he didn't have to. He also apologizes for being rude and asks for their identities. Ronan says that they are just passerby with a good heart, as they got into the poachers who captured the bird, but he can't really explain what happened, as too much blood was spilled to do it properly. He just says that they saved the bird without the additional information, and the person behind the rune is extremely surprised. It crossed his mind that poachers were the cause of this, but anyways, they are indebted to him right now. Ronan notes that such things aren't needed, but how do they return the bird to him? As it seems quite exhausted from being chained up. If he were to take the chain off, could it fly back to him? The owner confirms this, as the bird has a great homing instinct, so he should be able to free it. Ronan cuts the chain, which breaks instantly, and urges the bird to go back to its father, as he's making him worry. The bird is extremely grateful and starts cheeping around. Ronan notes that the bird is currently shoving its ass into his face and dancing around. So what does this mean? The owner notes that it just wants him to pluck out a feather before it flies away, as it wants to meet with them again, someday. After plucking out a dream bird's feather, it will direct to the main body constantly, like a compass of sorts. With that, he says that if he comes by the institution someday, they should come and visit them, as he will definitely repay them. The bird flies away, and Asel asks Ronan what he's holding. When he looks at his hand, he's also quite surprised. A few days later, a merchant assesses the valuables they have obtained, and notes that he will give them 20 gold coins for this certain piece. This man is the owner of the Carabel merchantry, Duan Carabel. He notes that all of the items he brought today are quite valuable, so it must be his lucky day. Ronan says that he's quite glad he has finally found someone who understands, as all of the merchants he tried up until now tried to scam him, which pissed him off quite a bit. But to think such a confident and worthy merchant was around here, walking around really paid off. Duan notes that he's honored by his words and asks if there are any more things he would like to sell. Ronan pulls out an egg from his pocket and says that he's curious as to what this thing is, but won't sell it. That night, the blue dream bird left this very egg behind. Initially, he thought it took a crap in his hands, but it didn't. However, this didn't stop him from throwing the item into a boulder before looking. Surprisingly, the boulder broke first, so it seems that this is quite the valuable item. He doesn't know if it's that bird's egg specifically, but it's certainly a product made by a fantastical creature, so it might be worth quite a lot. The merchant analyzes it diligently and notes that this color and texture can be only one thing. Ronan is now anticipating some very good news, but his dreams are shattered, as Duan says that it resembles horse crap. He doesn't know what it is, as it's quite the unusual object, so why doesn't he get it appraised in a place made for that? Ronan sighs and says that he will, but he can't sell it now, as he's quite curious about it. He also asks if he has any books about Philion, as they are planning to do the entrance exam together, but they don't know much about it. Duan notes that this is perfect timing, as his daughter is also doing the Philion exam, so he's sure she will be of some help to them. She eventually comes around and asks who these people are. Duan presents her to them, his only child Maria. Ronan looks at her and seems to recognize her from somewhere. Duan urges her to say hello, as these are some customers he made a big deal with. Maria asks what these babies sold him, and Duan demands she be more polite. He also apologizes to them for her rough language, as she grew up in the merchantry. Asel notes that it's fine, and Ronan walks up to Maria, asking if it's really her, the same one that uses Sen as her middle name. She confirms this, but how does he know? Ronan notices that she indeed looks like that person, but something is quite strange. He urges her to come closer, as he has a question for her. Does she perhaps have that under there? A Johnson, that is. Maria wonders what garbage she just listened to. A Johnson? Ronan says that no matter how he looks at it, her having one seems out of the question. Does that merchant have a lost son or something? She slaps the snot out of him and demands he shut his mouth already. This slap causes Ronan to have a revelation. This good slap. This familiar sensation. She really is that person. Count Maria Sen. When he was a disciplinary soldier in a place that went by the name of Armarlen, Maria was in charge of the supplies. She held a great work ethic and also had an easygoing personality, which allowed her to get along with anyone. She was quite the impressive person. When talks about Johnsons occurred among the guys, Maria got unusually angry and had a habit of slapping people around. He always wanted to ask when they met again, but he never got the chance to as she died before he did. To think he would find the answer to his burning question here? She was a girl. All this time? She sees him laughing and thinks that he didn't have enough, so she charges in for another attack. Ronan hits her in the head and says that she's acting up after slapping him. He only let her because he was in the wrong. This causes her to get mad, so she headbutts him in the chin. They continue to fight like animals, with Asel and Duan watching in horror. Eventually, they have to intervene. A while later, Asel is surprised at this turn of events, as these two just fought like they wanted to kill each other. But now, they are seemingly getting along. They assess the things they just bought, 3 swords and a magic wand. Maria asks why he bought so many swords, as she imagines it would be quite troublesome to carry this many. Ronan notes that they are just reserves, as he uses a sword quite roughly. She asks what he thinks about the quality, and he says that they aren't bad at all. But the best one is this one, which is made with black iron. Maria agrees, as black iron is quite sturdy, so it's an item even renowned knights often seek out. She doesn't know how roughly he treats his sword, but this most likely won't break. Ronan thinks that this was one of his favorite weapons in the past. Maria explains that this wand has a good magic stone inside of it, so is it perhaps for this cute little mage? Asel confirms it and notes that she uses telekinesis magic. Maria finds this amazing and notes that she will surely get a scholarship with that type of magic. This only leaves them 2, so what technique will he show during the practical exam? Ronan asks what she's talking about, and she explains that in order to enter Philion, everyone must take a practical where one will need to impress the professors and show them techniques. They also have a theory exam, which is quite difficult, but not as difficult as the practical, to the point that it's said, if you pass that, you won't need the theory exam at all. Basically, he just needs to prove his worth, or forget about the academy. Ronan notes that a swordsman like himself just needs to show good swordsmanship. But what do people usually demonstrate? Marya says that nobles usually show their family's secret techniques, but most martial artists and applicants alike demonstrate their personal techniques. Ronan stops her for a second and asks if kids who use swords can use mana at this age, even though they aren't mages. Marya finds his question quite weird, as being able to do that as a prospective Filion student is a given. One would constantly sense their mana anyways, so why not use it in combat? Ronan doesn't get it all, but Marya does. He doesn't know how to sense mana, right? Ronan asks if it's not similar to using aura, and Marya is shocked she's talking to this guy about entering Filion. How can he say mana and aura are similar? He notes that it's probably something he knew about already. So why is she making such a fuss? She demands he come outside now, and that she needs to borrow the swords for something. He asks if she will pay for them if something were to happen, and she explains that it won't take that long. But if that happens, she will pay the price threefold. So, how about it? Now they should stop the chit-chat and get to some special training. Mana is the source of the power of nature, and like air, it's natural and exists everywhere in the world. However, that doesn't mean that everyone can use it, as in order to, one needs to see and feel his own mana and be able to use their mana sense. To enter this stage, one can use training, innate talent, or other things, with various personal reason also coming into play. But it usually takes 1 year of training to even start sensing mana. Filion's prospective students surpass that stage early, and after learning their own mana techniques, they apply to Filion. Does he get it now? He doesn't have sense, and can't even tell the difference between mana and aura. So for him to go to Filion is just plain crazy. But it is true that aura is also a type of mana, but difference between them is extremely large. Ronan asks if it's really that big, and Marya explains that even those who have showed talent and trained for a minimum of 10 years find it hard to obtain their enlightened innate power. That is aura. Ronan says that he understands a bit, and thinks that he met a few people on the battlefield from time to time, who bragged constantly about being aura users, and used quite an unusual power. They were definitely annoying to deal with, but he's not surprised to find out they had an amazing ability, although one still dies if they get sliced enough. Marya says that they should stop with the explanations and get started already. He will probably learn faster by using his body, rather than his head anyways. Ronan thinks that she's a young girl, so she can't hope to do much. But she closes the gap instantly, which takes him by surprise. Their swords clash, and Ronan spots that she's ready for battle. They continue to fight, and Ronan is surprised she's exerting this much power at such a young age, and also dual-wielding. He can't see it, so he's not really sure, but is her fighting style perhaps related to mana? Marya is also surprised, as she planned to finish him in one go, and make him give up on the test, because it thought this would be better than facing complete humiliation in the testing area. However, she's the one getting pushed back. Is this really the skill of someone who can't use mana? Ronan asks what she's thinking about. This takes her by surprise, allowing him to deflect her blades and charge a mighty attack. He warns her she should dodge this one. She barely manages to do so, and notes that if she hesitated even for a second, she would have been gone. He's not normal, isn't he? Ronan says that the same could be said of her, as she's quite talented with a sword. She's only a little rusty with maintaining her center of gravity, but if she fixed that, she would improve quite a bit. He starts leaving, and she demands that he stop, as the fight isn't over yet. He urges her to keep her word about paying threefold, and that's when one of her swords shatters into pieces, right before her eyes. Ronan tells her get the money ready, and Estelle taps her on the shoulder, as she wanted to congratulate her. With that, they leave, leaving Marya to wonder just who these people are. The next day, they go to the market to get their money, but Marya has also gifted them some books, which contain information about the Filion theory exam. She's sure they need them, as the exam is taking place next month. Ronan notes that they indeed need them, but why would she go this far? Is she perhaps trying to mess with them? Marya calms him down and says that it's nothing of the sort. She's just taken a liking to them is all. It's a simple service because Shu wants all of them to pass for free. No additional fees needed. She would have liked to teach him personally, but because of their deals, they need to head out, so they should study hard. As if they fail even after this, she will be mad. With that, she leaves, and Ronan thinks that he needs to train his body and also study, which he has no knack for. But this is certainly not a bad feeling. Ronan's life after returning back home was similar to how it usually was, but has started to change slightly. He ate together with Iris like usual, but he did so to the point where his stomach would burst. Filled with that many calories, he hunted beasts on the outskirts of the village and started to increase his stamina and adaptability like that. He did it to the point where there were no more beasts left around the village. Besides that, he also studied, which was unimaginable for a disciplinary soldier like himself. But despite that, he tried his best. And after a month, their main story is about to begin, in Valognes, the capital city. At its center stood the best education institution in the whole empire, the White Tower's own small city. Acel admires Filion and how masterfully crafted it is, but Ronan urges her to not stand in the middle of the street like the bumpkin she is, and move, as they will be late for the exam. She replies in a strange way, as she still finds it quite surprising that he grew so much in just 1 month. Ronan urges her to stop thinking about useless things and get going. He thinks that since they are here, they might meet him, the sword saint Schlieffen, a descendant of Grancia, a prestigious swordsman family. He is a genius who is considered the strongest in the entire empire. He should be around their age, so he might be taking the exam now, but it doesn't really matter. Acel asks if he has that thing, the feather the dream bird gave them, that was supposed to lead them to its owner. He notes that he did indeed pack it before they left, and he was also planning to visit after the test. That's when they notice that the feather is pointing to the highest floor of Filion. Inside, the bird's owner notes that he isn't really used to being a professor, but the bird is cheering him on, which he appreciates. But he should keep going, to repay the kind hero who saved him. This is Filion's zoology professor, Varan Fanashir, a Wer-Lion. He thinks that he should open the window for some ventilation, as they need to present himself nicely to their hero, right? When he opens the window, however, he sees Ronan, who looks like he's here for other things. He spots the bird from before, but him and his owner both scream, as this has taken them by surprise quite a bit. Varan backs himself from them and asks who they are, and how they even managed to get up so high, as this is one of the top floors. Ronan notes that he screams way too loud, and Acel says that this is why they should have taken the stairs. Varan asks if they are after his precious comrade, Marpez, but that's when he notices what Ronan is holding. The feather. He finally realizes that they are the heroes who saved Marpez. They sit down, and Varan apologizes for his unsightly behavior, especially in front of their heroes. Ronan says that it's nothing, so he doesn't need to repeat himself so much. But if they would go into specifics, Acel would be more at fault, since used telekinesis to climb to the window. She denies this, as he was the one who told her to do that. However, her opinion seems to be invalid, as Ronan just shuts her up. More importantly, he certainly didn't imagine for a Wer-Lion to be the owner of the bird, and also a professor at Filion. Varan notes that he was also quite surprised, and would have written a letter of recommendation for them if he knew they were entrance applicants. Ronan notes that it's fine, and since they are here, he has something important to ask. Specifically what this is, as that bluebird just left it behind like it was too heavy or something. Varan looks a bit closer and confirms that indeed, this is a dream bird egg. He's quite shocked that Marpez really laid an egg, but Ronan doesn't understand him, as birds lay eggs quite often. Varan explains that it's not just a simple bird, but a dream bird, and that he has absolutely no idea about what's going to hatch from this egg. Ronan again is puzzled, and says that if it's a bird egg, a bird will hatch, right? Varan notes that a dream bird is quite different, as depending on the environment surround it, a dream bird will absorb unique mana and lay an egg. In an area of lava, a mighty phoenix might hatch, or in a monster's nest, the hatched dream egg will take the appearance of a monster, and so on. There are many circumstances where it won't take the form of a normal bird at all. If he analyzes the mana that's coming from the egg, it's possible to predict what appearance the dream bird might have. However, this certain egg holds a myriad of mana, and it's going rampant. As of right now, it's hard to say for certain what this egg contains. Ronan notes that he really likes to put meaning into mere things like eggs, but where has this bird been wandering to lay an egg such as this? Marpez chirps, and Ronan finds his attitude quite shameless. Varan asks if they will take care of the egg, and Ronan notes that they will, but isn't it a precious item? Varan confirms that indeed it is, as a dream bird lays a single egg in its lifetime. But it laid it in front of its heroes, so Marpez must have felt something special with them. He just wants to respect his friend's choices, that's all. Ronan says that he's fine with it, as he's quite curious as to what will come out of the egg as well. However, it's almost time for the exam, so they should be going now. Varan stops them for a second, as he wanted to give something to them that will certainly help with the hatching of the egg. A while later, at the practical testing hall, Galeon Castle's main building. Every participant sits in the waiting room. Some check their weapons, while others pray. A man announces that applicant 111 exam has ended, so applicant 112 should come forth. He does so, and Ronan thinks that if this guy is number 112, he's up next, but they really like to make they wait a long time. Doesn't she think so as well? Marya says that every exam is like this, and Ronan asks why she's wearing that, as it seems very uncomfortable. She notes that Philion is a private academy which nobles attend, who might become expensive customers in the future, so she should look the part, right? Ronan thinks that she's just doing too much at this point, and she notes that it would have been nice if Asel was here too. Ronan explains that nothing can be done about that, since the magic testing hall is somewhere else entirely. However, he will be quite glad if he doesn't see her crying by herself when she gets back. Applicant 112 gets out of the exam chamber with quite the tired face. And so, it seems to be Ronan's turn. Marya urges him to not be nervous and try his best, as if he fails, she will chase him down to the ends of the earth. Ronan thanks her for the ever-so-touching words and support, and notes that he will be back. He enters the chamber, and comes in front of the Philion professors, who look extraordinarily powerful. Among them, that old man in the middle stands out, as he's the headmaster, Archmage Krava Kratir. The woman next to him also has an overwhelming aura, and he's rarely felt this type of vigor from someone, even in his past life. This is the swordsmanship instructor, the Grand Sword Saint Nabaros. He presents himself, and Krava does the same. He explains that he will be up against a magically engineered dummy, and he needs to demonstrate a technique. So what has he decided to show them today? Ronan looks at it and thinks that a fast cut might do the trick on this dummy. The man next to Krava notes that there's always someone who underestimates the dummy just because of how it looks, and says foolish things. The man next to him concurs, but if this applicant is from the country, of course, he wouldn't know. Even if it does look the way it does, it has fast regeneration, and it's a product of magical engineering. He whispers that even the genius Schlieffen barely managed to leave a scratch on his own sword, so he really wonders what he will be doing differently. The other jokes that he might actually split it in half, and they laugh quite loudly. Krava wonders if that child will prove them wrong, and when he looks at him, he's surprised that he holds such vigor, especially at such a young age. Ronan breaks the ground with his movement, and in a single slash, impresses Nabaros a lot. He sheathes his sword, and says that this is all he had to present. The two gossiping professors note that they expected this much, but when they look at Krava, his jaw is dropped to the floor. Nabaros puts her foot on the table and launches herself towards Ronan, with killing intent and sword ready. The sword almost reaches his neck until it stops, and she demands to know where he learned that swordsmanship from. He asks what she might mean with this, and she changes the question. Did he perhaps see her movements? Ronan says that he did, as in that instant she jumped at him. She unsheathed the sword and swung 3 times. Nabaros says that he's correct, and it's just like what he showed them with that arrogant cut. Did he really think she wouldn't notice? That foolish swordsmanship of his? He slowed down his last cut intentionally, just in case they didn't see it, like he was being considerate of them or something. He's quite arrogant for his age, but has he really forgotten where he is? Krava looks at this, and the theory professors, who now feel a bit guilty, wonder what to do. Ronan thinks that this is just a simple misunderstanding, as he only adjusted the strength because he thought the sword wouldn't be able to withstand the last cut. But judging by the current mood, it seems like she wouldn't believe him now. Nabaros sheathes her sword and says that she will remember him, and will definitely be the one to teach him. Krava looks at her and thinks that she basically called dibs on this to be her disciple already. It seems that he needs to pay more attention to the trainees from now on. He congratulates Ronan for a job well done, and notes that now they will end the test with a common question. It doesn't have a real answer, so he can answer with what he feels like. What does he want to learn from coming to Philion? Ronan ponders the question a bit, and he answers with, to not have any regrets. That is what he wants to learn first and foremost. Krava says that he can leave, and he does so. To not have any regrets, huh? He wonders how he will be able to teach him something like that, and one of the theory professors asks what's going on, as he and Nabaros are acting quite strange. What did that boy really do? Perhaps a trick. Krava notes that it might be a good way to put it, or rather, pure talent is a better way to explain. The head of the magic dummy falls off, and the cut is extremely clean. Ronan thinks about the lady who threatened his life just now, and wonders if he would have been able to win, even in his past life. He thought he went through way too many hardships for anything to surprise him anymore, But this is something very different. He thinks that he did good coming to Philion, as he feels he will be able to learn quite a bit. Now, only the written test is left, but it will be quite easy, as he memorized lots of things. However, after finishing, he's very down, and says that he's done for. Maria asks why he couldn't answer half of the test. Did he perhaps not look at the books in his bag? Asel explains that he took the things he needed to study and moved his bag, but after hyper-focusing, he forgot about the bag completely. Maria thinks that he's a real fool, and asks if the announcement will come soon. She picks him up and notes that it's fine, as the practical matters more, and with his skills, he must have passed. The tower suddenly starts glowing from the bottom, and the list of people who passed pops up. They go to check quickly, and surely enough, both Asel and Maria are on there, with Asel being tied first in the theory test. They are extremely happy that they managed to pass, and Maria congratulates her for being basically the first, which is quite an amazing achievement. She turns around to Ronan, but he's basically dead inside, as he did not pop up anywhere on the list. Maria urges him to look closer with those tiny eyes of his, but he says that his name isn't anywhere on the list, as he messed up royally. Suddenly, a large ball of fire drops down next to them, and Maria explains that this is the entrance exam's last cannon fire for each department's salutatorian, a glory phoenix. It sends a few fireballs, and one heads straight for Ronan. It causes a pretty large explosion, but after the smoke clears, Ronan sees that he's been invited to the martial arts department salutatorian, as he got first place in the practical, and we won't talk about his theory placement. The girls hug him tightly, and Maria notes that for someone who flunked the theory exam, he must have done something amazing to enter the martial arts salutatorian. Ronan thinks that if he got first place, that guy lost to him, and with his personality, there's no way he's just going to stay quiet. Sure enough, he comes from behind, and notes that he must be the one who came first in the practical test. This is the Sword Saint, Schlieffen. Other people are surprised that the Empire's shining star would be here, with Maria and Asel also being quite shocked because of his presence. Ronan thinks that if he's the same as he was in his past life, things will become troublesome, as that guy just can't stand anyone who is better at the sword than him. He has an outrageous fighting spirit. He must avoid this situation at all costs, so he tries to play dumb, but Schlieffen sees through him instantly and starts unsheathing his sword. He tries to strike Ronan, who manages to block him. Schlieffen notes that if he wasn't the first, he would have not been able to block that attack. People gather to watch the fight, and he notes that he wants to see the skills that bested him. Ronan has had enough, and notes that if this is really what he wants, he will be glad to show him. He strikes 3 times, and Schlieffen defects all of them. Ronan asks if this is enough for him, and sure enough, his hand starts to tremble from the force. Now, it makes sense he got a good score, as he has shown great technique, but this is nowhere near enough to beat him. Ronan urges him to relax already, but Schlieffen is too in his head to even comprehend words, as he still can't accept that this guy got first place. Ronan thinks that this bastard is plain crazy, and this is exactly why he didn't want to meet him. At this point, he will start manipulating aura, which will be very bad. As he can't handle his aura called the Tempest Sword, he's sure that he can't. However, he has a plan, so he starts running, and Schlieffen asks how he dares turn his back to an opponent like this. Ronan grabs Asel and puts her in front of him. Schlieffen is extremely angry that he's using a lady as a meat shield. Can he really call himself a knight? Asel notes that he's a guy. At this point, I think that the author is also quite confused about his gender, so we will leave it like that. Ronan uses this opportunity to hit Schlieffen square in the face and bolts it out of there with his party. One of the teachers comes to see what's going on and spots that Schlieffen is injured. He says that he will call the guards and go after those rascals, but Schlieffen urges him to speak informally, as he's not the son of an important family right now, but just an applicant with a commoner status. And he also doesn't need to worry about this, as it was a simple, fair fight. That's when he notices that his sword cracked, a sword made with the highest grade mithril. He thought that Ronan's skill wasn't that great, but to think he would do this much with such a common sword. He will certainly remember his name. The next day, at the outskirts of the capital, in a forest called Shimo, Ronan and Asel walk around, with Ronan following a map. Asel asks if they can really afford to do this right now, as yesterday he broke the nose of the heir of the Grancia ducal family. What will he do if he decided to retaliate, huh? Ronan notes that he shouldn't worry, as he's a good guy, just crazy about the way of the sword. He's someone who upholds principle and trust above all else. Everyone's role model, one who protects the weak, basically the epitome of the perfect noble. He probably said that what happened was a simple spar. As if he hadn't, they would have been behind bars already. Acel notes that he's right, and they arrive at the mana vein Varen told them about, the Fernardo Spring. Mana that hovers around the world for an unknown reason and gathers in a single spot is called a mana vein. With its existence, mana would be absorbed by its surrounding matter. A regular plain rock would turn into the highest grade mana stone, and a random weed from the ground would transform into a rare medicinal herb. It is quite famous, and it possesses great attributes. Its value is very large, and people would monopolize it in an instant if they saw it. So the Varen is quite generous to give something like this to them, only to hatch an egg. He asks Acel if it feels any different around here, and he notes that it's his first time sensing so much mana in one place. If it's around here, he can use magic that is stronger than usual. That egg in his pocket is also doing something, as it's absorbing mana at incredible speeds. Ronan notes that they will see, but it would have been nice to also have Marya here, but she couldn't come because she was busy with the merchantry. Acel notices that something is strange, as Varen said that since there's a lot of mana here, a few fantastical species nest and relax in this place. Even for regular animals, this place is a gold mine, but they haven't hurt a single animal since they came here. Ronan takes a whiff of the air and thinks that he was too complacent. He laments that things are getting out of hand again, and he urges Acel to get ready, as he has caught the scent of blood. The hunters who wear fox skulls start assaulting them with arrows, but Ronan destroys all of them with a single strike. However, he seems to remember the arrowheads these arrows use. In the past, at a campsite, one of the people from his group explained that this arrowhead could even blow up an orc head, and that they were used by an elite member of a certain organization, Calaboro. Ronan is surprised that he ran into them once again, and thinks that only the bloodhounds have access to arrowheads like this, so it must be a team full of them. He tells Acel to go hide, if he doesn't want to become a porcupine, that is. As for himself, he will have to do a bit of hunting. The leader of the bloodhound group is surprised that this brat managed to cut arrows that had mana infused in them. Just who is this guy? He tells everyone to split, and Ronan thinks that he's taking decisions quite fast, which isn't good for him. He tells them to stop attacking, as he's an ally. The leader asks what nonsense he's talking about, and Ronan explains that he's the youngest bloodhound from the Damas branch, a Hayut. They all gather around him, and immediately start interrogating him, as he's too young to be a bloodhound. Ronan tells him to ask the wolf from this branch, and also says that he shouldn't assume that people can't do what he does. This enrages him, and starts threatening violence. One of the subordinate calms him down, as even if he's still a Hid, he knows about the Calaboro ranking system, which is kept very hidden, and only members know. They should wait for the captain to confirm his identity. That's when the captain arrives, a man by the name of Viam, and the leader of the small group explains the situation. Ronan smiles, as he's quite glad they are all gathered in one place. Viam starts interrogating him and asks what he's doing here, as this mountain range belongs to Demir. Ronan says that he wasn't sure, as he's not really a Hayut. In that second he slashes most of the men in two, and before Viam can react, he cleanly cuts his head off. The only survivor is the team leader, and Ronan says that he told him already. His ending will be bad. The leader's fingers fall off, and he falls to his knees because of the pain. Ronan says that if he doesn't want to die like the rest, he will write down the locations of all the branches he knows of. Of course, if he's so loyal and doesn't want to, he will have to dispose of him. The leader asks how he can do that with one hand. But Ronan already gave him a pen, and his right hand looks just fine. Afterwards, Ronan congratulates him for drawing a detailed map, and the leader asks if he will let him go now. Ronan slashes him clean in half, as of course he couldn't have let him go. Acel starts throwing up at what he just saw, and Ronan urges him to stop overreacting and get a hold of himself. Acel apologizes, but this is a bit too much, as there are countless dead animals in here. Ronan told him before, letting people like these alive is a crime, so he should stop worrying about it. However, if Varen sees this, he will be quite saddened, as his bird is also among the victims. The egg suddenly starts shaking in its pouch, and Acel points at something while trembling. Ronan's eyes widen when he looks, as the blood from the animal starts to form into a ball. Ronan prepares to fight once again, and the egg escapes from its pouch. It starts glowing, and all of the blood starts circulating around it. It's absorbing the blood, and Acel asks what's going on. Ronan notes that he doesn't know, but one thing is for sure, whatever is inside of this egg is quite special. Eventually the egg finishes the blood, and shortly after, it starts cracking. Ronan patiently waits to see what's inside, but is greeted by a hit to the face by the dream bird, who doesn't seem to be a bird at all. Asel says that it resembles a dragon, as he saw similar things in books. Ronan wonders what that bird did to make an egg like this, but he admits that it is quite cute. However, the greeting was a little much, as a sucker punch to the face isn't the best feeling. The dream bird begins casting some magic, and it heals Ronan's injuries fully. Asel notes that it's capable of healing magic, and also seems to like him quite a bit. Asel says that they should name it, as they can't keep calling it a dream bird. Suddenly, it notices something, and bolts towards it. A Demire branch errand boy by the name of Balrus starts running away from the forest, as he saw the bodies Ronan left behind, and also what happened with the egg. That's when he notices that the dream bird is towards him, and in that moment of carelessness, he trips, causing him to fall. The dream bird starts draining his blood through his knee, which looks very painful, but Ronan comes and tells it to stop, as it will kill him if this continues. He also gives it the name of Sita, which it seems to like. Balrus wonders if this guy is the owner of this beast, and Ronan asks if he's all right, calling him by his name. Balrus notes that he is, and thanks him for saving his life. But how does he know his name? Ronan pulls his sword out, and notes that he doesn't need to know that. He didn't think they would meet like this, but it's nice that they finally do. This was a dear comrade to him in the past, who is now just a mere errand boy, which amuses Ronan quite a bit. But getting to the point, he needs him to do something, and for his information, he can't say no. Later that day, Ronan plays around with some cash he made through selling some of the water from the Manhwa vein to Maria's father, who gave them quite a large amount of money for it. Ronan notes that they are indebted to Varen now, and they did want to thank him, but he went on a business trip suddenly, which is quite unfortunate. However, in addition to the job he assigned Balrus, the map he received from that bloodhound is quite useful. He also instilled so much fear in Balrus that he wouldn't think of betraying him. Asel asks if he wants to buy something with the money, and Ronan thinks that the entrance ceremony will be taking place soon. So it seems that he does have something. A few days later, Iris arrives in the city, which she likes quite a bit. Ronan greets her, noting that she must be quite tired from the trip, and also asks if something happened while he was gone. Iris notes that she should be the one to ask that, as she was quite surprised when a high-class carriage popped up in front of their house suddenly. And also, why has he lost so much weight? Is he perhaps not eating properly? Ronan notes that he's eating well enough, and Iris spots Sita, who salutes her. Ronan notes that they are just traveling together because of a few circumstances, but more importantly, they need to hurry, as he's going to be busy with the academy once he enters, but would like to do something beforehand. At a clothes shop, Iris says that she understands that he's got money and is carefree because he also got a scholarship. But isn't this a bit too much? He talks with the store manager, and Iris continues, as these are way too many gifts. Ronan says that it's not that much, and it's about time she would benefit from all the hard work she did to raise him. This statement touches Iris's heart, and she screams that she has the kindest brother in the world. They finish shopping, and Ronan says that they will go to a few workshops, as he needs to repair his sword thanks to a certain someone. That certain someone pops up suddenly, which shocks Ronan and Sita a lot. Ronan asks what he's doing here, and Schlieffen says that he came to order a new sword, and that's when he spotted him. So he decided to wait until he came out, so he should stop misunderstanding things so easily. Ronan pulls out his sword, and notes that because of him his sword is in a poor state. Does he really want to for another round? Schlieffen notes that it's not a bad idea at all. But Iris gets in front of them, and demands that Ronan stops using such foul language. He tries to talk back, but she doesn't let him, and she turns to Schlieffen to apologize. In that moment, the most influential young man, and the Empire's shining star, fell into the trap of simping, as he fell in love at first sight. She continues to apologize, but while blushing, he says that it's because of his lack of tackiness, so a lady such as herself shouldn't take the responsibility. She grabs his hands, and notes that she's quite glad Ronan has a friend like him. Ronan just stares, as he's quite stupefied because of the situation. Schlieffen notes that he will compensate for the broken sword, and while he doesn't have any gold, they can have this, his family's proof of identification. Ronan is quite shocked that he would just give out something like this, and Schlieffen explains that if they are going to get a sword, they should go to the blacksmith on the western end, as that place has hundreds of years of history, and they will surely be able to enter if they give them that. With that, he leaves, and Ronan is still shocked. With that proof of identification, one could buy most villages. Is this simp really the sword saint he once knew? The next day, at the entrance ceremony, Krava welcomes the freshmen of class 787 to the school. He talks about their limitless potential and the education they will receive here. But most of all, he congratulates them for their abilities. Ronan thinks that this is quite boring, but things like this aren't bad from time to time, as his sister seems to be liking it. Krava snaps his fingers, and a strange glow envelops the students. The students are all shocked, as the sky is seemingly shattering out of nowhere. With a large blue flash, they are all transported into an arena. Ronan wonders if Krava really teleported everyone with just a snap of his fingers, who notes that now since everyone is here, they should start the meeting between their seniors and juniors. The senior-junior meeting is something that occurs between the incoming freshmen of the school and the seniors who have been here for 2 years. Because this is the place where they meet each other for the very first time, the process is known and expected to be quite intense. It is also an event which the Philian school deems special. The way things are done are as so. The first and second ranks go to represent the freshmen, and they are each appointed to one of the 4-year 2s that are waiting for them, which all have their individual fighting styles, representative by the weapons they use. With all of this prepared, they will be part of a one-on-one spar. Krava starts speaking to everyone and explains that this very significant event stands close to the hearts of the instructors of this school. It is not just about the professors, who eagerly wait to see what new pupils they can train and nurture, but also about the relationship between the seniors and juniors, as they learn from each other, for example, their weaknesses. He believes that from this exchange, they will be complementing each other, and competing like this is the start of their real, true education. These duels are only for educational purposes, and through them, the representatives of their respective years will be able to demonstrate how they take their first step into the real world. Naturally, because of this, the freshmen will be given the choice to choose who they fight, and it is possible to decline a duel. So they shouldn't feel burdened by this greeting, and feel free to do as they please. Ronan is kind of mad that this guy keeps beating around bush, as this is basically just hazing the freshmen. From the right, the first guy is the martial arts major sophomore standing at rank 1, Nasdo. The second is in the same category, but stands at rank 2, Brahm, who is glad to see some hardy freshmen this time around. All of them seem to be in the same category, but with different ranks. The one on the left is called Karun, who is rank 4, while the red-haired woman on the right is named Irina, who is rank 3. Brahm starts screaming about how excited he is for the battles to start, and notes that he can't hold it in anymore. He wants to fight with all of his might. This creeps Ronan out a bit, and thinks that, with this situation, he can show his older sister that he is not going in this place just to get beat up. It would also be better if he could show her his great companionship with this guy that is standing next to him too, but that is still to be seen. Krava announces that they can now choose who to fight, and Ronan puts his hand up, as he has a suggestion he would like to make. Krava asks what that suggestion might be, and Ronan explains that, since they are able to choose who to fight freely, he would like to be taught by all of his most respectful seniors. This means, of course, that they will be coming for him all at once. The arena stands silent after hearing this, and the teachers begin discussing if something like this can be done. Krava asks Nabirose what her thoughts are on Ronan's suggestion, and she asks him to proceed with it, if he wishes to do so. Isn't this school's principle that if one possesses the skill, they are free to do whatever they wish? So, in this case, no matter who wins this duel, it will hold a deep meaning to a lot of people. If this goes south, like they usually tend to, she will also be intervening, if that helps his nerves calm down. Krava understands, and with this, allows what Ronan suggested to happen. All of the seniors are now serious, and stare at Ronan with anger. Karun thinks that all of this is quite absurd. Just how badly is that boy looking down on them? Irina notes that he is doing whatever he wants, just because he was ranked second. They should use this opportunity to crush their spirits into powder. Nasdo urges them to calm down, as that child is arrogant, but Schlieffen is most definitely skilled, so he is an opponent that they can't just look down on. They will be going all out immediately, even if these are freshmen. Iris worryingly looks at Ronan and tells him to be careful, and if he thinks it is becoming too dangerous, he needs to forfeit right away. Ronan just waves at her, and with that all of the way, Krava announces that the first match between the juniors and seniors will now commence. Nasdo rushes in instantly, and tries to strike Ronan with all of his might, which makes Ronan think that they are quite sharp. It seems that they are only a couple levels higher than Maria, but it still means that they are basically on another level. Irina also charges in with her dagger, but Ronan blocks the attack and throws her hitting arm away. Karun comes from behind her and demands that she duck. She does so, and the spear almost reaches Ronin, but he blocks it, who is quite surprised by their level of teamwork. This attack pushes him back a bit, but that's when, in a moment of thinking, Brahm comes from behind him and gets ready to strike him with all of his might. Before he does that, he asks Ronin why he would be doing something like this, as he wanted to have a much more valiant spart with him. He tries to hit Ronin with the blade, who notices what they are all trying to do. A swift and strong finish blow, or distraction, while the others follow it up with an attack. Truly, they are all at a really high level, strategically at least. In that second, he jumps out of everyone's sight, and also hits them. They all begin falling down like swatted flies, but this proved to Ronin that they are all amazing, and this school that grew them into this must be even more so. He looks behind, and is quite surprised to see Brahm still standing, as he thought that his fighting spirit would have been shattered at this point. Well, he will remain considerate until that happens, so he should hold tight. They both charge in, but Brahm notices some extremely strange, as Ronin is now copying Nabarosa's fighting style. Or this is how it seems to him, at least. Ronin smiles, and with 3 swift attacks, Brahm's sword shatters into small pieces, and Ronin thanks his seniors, as he has learned quite a lot from them. What happened here shocks the whole stadium, and they all shout with amazement and cheer for Ronin as he is extremely skilled, while the seniors look at their broken weapons. Nasdo begins laughing, as this fight was so one-sided, he can't hope to be upset about losing it. Where did this freshman even come from? One thing is for sure, at least his strength is plain monstrous. Ronin looks at his sister, who is almost choking a guy from the excitement, and thinks that with this, nobody would dare to try and bully him. Now, there is only one thing left to do. He makes his way to the seniors, and congratulates them for the amazing fight. He has learned quite a lot from this spar, and from them. He only placed himself in this situation because he was very excited to be a student of Philion, but their strength is truly unimaginable. From the bottom of his very heart, he thanks them for accepting his challenge. He also pleads with them to pardon the rudeness that he displayed today, and looks forward to learn even further from them. He finishes all of this with a bow, and all of the seniors stare at each other in shock and awe. Suddenly, Brahm starts screaming that he was wrong about him. He is not only extremely strong, but also extremely polite. However, he needn't be so humble, as he fought fairly, and won just as so. He should be confident about his victory. He rises Rona's hand up and tells everyone that this is what an exemplary Philion student should be like. Brahm congratulates him on the amazing display of skills and manners, making Ronin say that he is quite the fiery man. With this, since he has shown his social skills so much, he is sure that his sister won't worry about that anymore. She begins crying about how he grew up so fast, while the guy next to her covers his chest, as she has ripped his shirt in half. A woman with purple hair watches this display, and notes that this boy is quite interesting. That night, they hold a banquet with delicious food, and everyone seems to be enjoying themselves. Ronin looks around and says that he was curious, since this was the entrance ceremony banquet. But this is really grand. Maya notes this is the best institution for learning after all, so this much is to be expected. Asel asks if he met with his sister right before she left, and Ronin says that he did. It took him a good while to reassure her, since she is very worried about him. He also left Sita with her, so he doesn't have to worry about her returning home safely. Asel notes that he is truly one amazing brother, which Ronin thinks that is only natural. Well, after a long and eventful day, it is time to eat, so he should get to it. That's when Schlieffen pops up from behind him like a ghost, and interrupts him before he can take a single bite out of the meat. This makes Ronin jump, and ask him just what he wants this time around. Schlieffen says that he doesn't want anything in particular. He is just here to check on something important. Ronin asks what that might be, and Schlieffen begins his assault of questions. Where does Iris live, and how far it is from here? How are the road conditions there? Is the security good? And if there are any frequent bandit accidents around the area? All of these questions puzzle Ronin quite a bit, but Schlieffen continues nonetheless. He did employ some guards, right? He trusts that he at least employed some mercenaries to escort her home. Ronin screams at him that he did that, and who he employed is much stronger than all of them. Unless a wyvern descends from its nest and lands straight on the carriage, nothing will happen, so he can just relax. This takes Schlieffen by surprise, as it means that Iris will die if a wyvern appears, right? Ronin tells him that this is enough. He is too crazy about these things. Why is he worried about his sister anyways? Is he her husband or something? Schlieffen freezes up, and explains that he is just worried about her, since they acquainted and all. Suddenly the woman with purple hair comes around, and notes that this is quite an interesting sight, as she has never seen him so chatty before. Schlieffen asks what business she has with him, and calls her by the name of Akalucia. This is Elizabeth Akalucia, and is the freshman top of the magic class. She tells him to not be mistaken about things, as she has no business with him, and is rather interested in Ronan. He asks why that would be the case, and Schlieffen sighs, as this must be her evil hobby. With that, he leaves, and tells her that she can do as she pleases. Before doing so, however, he suggests sending a guard from his family to Iris, but Ronan tells him off one last time. Acel thugs on his shirt and notes that there was something going on with that girl from earlier. Ronan notes that he doesn't need to explain, as he felt it too, that she was quite powerful. In fact, she is overwhelmingly so, for a mage. She explains that those who bear their claws so easily must be taught a lesson. Surely he knows what she means, right? Ronan notes that he doesn't. But why did she want to see him anyway? Elizabeth explains that she was simply very impressed by his talent, so she is here to make him an offer, a special one, that someone as mere as him couldn't just refuse. She pulls out a pendant, and Ronan looks at it, knowing that it is Akalucia's invitation. The Akalucias are a noble family, but unlike most nobles who prioritize bloodline above all else, Akalucia prioritizes talent above all else. In the past, they have debuted many talented individuals and secured their position as one of the two pillars of the empire. They offer an opportunity to those who show potential to become part of the family, which Ronan has just received. This is the symbol of all that, an invitation into their family. Ronan asks if she is just allowed to hand this over as she pleases, making her think that he already knows what it is, for him to be asking that question. He looks at the symbol, and remembers the chat he had with Adishan about it, who was also an Akalucia. She explained that if he received this, he needed to pass a test given by the Patriarch, and that he would be a part of this famous and prestigious family. He should keep this in mind, as after he atones for his sins with his accomplishments in this war, he may end up also receiving an invitation. This made him feel quite strange, and that same feeling still lingers even now. Elizabeth tells him that he should think about it, and make a wise choice. Even if he was born a beast, if he mingles among these sheep, he will just become a part of the flock. With that, she leaves, and Acel is quite glad. Ronan says that these geniuses do as they please around here, but thinks that it's good he has a method of contact now. The Akalucias will definitely prove useful for him. This academy is one that prioritizes a student's abilities above anything else. Depending on one's grades around here, their environment can change greatly. The most representative side of this is how the dormitory system works. The people who are intermediate rank are assigned to the Nataya Hall. Each person in there is provided with a clean room, a high-grade cafeteria, and much more. It is a pretty nice place, where one gets all of their daily necessities with ease. On the other hand, those who make up the bottom 30% are assigned to Crater Hall. And usually, the first day in the Crater Hall goes like this, with the shouting of the students. Especially the nobles, who felt wronged about the school sending them to a place like this, broken and run down. One of the academy workers explains that they will not be provided any servants, as there are no employees in this hall. It is also 4 people per room, and the cafeteria, shower, and bathroom are all shared. These are just the academy's rules, so they should study hard and get out of this place as soon as they can. Otherwise, they will also be staying in here the next semester too. And last but not least, the top 10% of the students, including Ronan in this case, are assigned to the Naberdozer Hall. One can describe this place in just one phrase. This is truly a very nice place. Ronan is surprised that they would accommodate mere students like this, and they also receive the class registration form on their table already. He is just supposed to write down what class he wants to take on this timetable. It is important to get adjusted into this place in the first year, so he heard it is not wise to choose many classes, but all of these look very interesting. This is a common misunderstanding of someone who has yet to experience the hell of multiple classes in a single day. Eventually he finished, and his timetable is quite full, but since he is in Philion and all, he should take all of the classes he wants. That same day, one of the instructors kick him out almost instantly, as he doesn't need to take this class. This is the instructor of the Empire Swordsmanship Basics, Abar. Ronan asks why that is, as he has just begun. Abar explains it simply. It is exactly as he says. They have just begun, yet he has mastered all of the Empire's swordsmanship techniques instantly. The rules of the academy state that if a student learned everything, they should leave that class, and if he were to stay, he wouldn't do anything but demotivate the other students. With that said, he shouldn't be so prideful, and continue to move forward. Later that day, Ronan sits at the lake saddened by how this day went. He didn't get kicked out just from the swordsmanship lessons, but also the bowmanship and monster hunting classes. Why did they all have to kick him out? Suddenly, Nabby Rose appears and asks why he isn't in class. But she can probably figure it out, that he completed all of those easily. Ronan confirms that is the case, and wonders if all of the classes are like this. Maybe Filion can't do any better than this. Nabaros is pleasantly surprised that he managed to complete all of those classes in a single day. But it is to be expected from someone like him. It only took him one day to copy her technique after all. She notes that she can't turn a blind eye to this, and asks him for his sword. She will now be teaching him a very important lesson. Ronan wonders what it is, but that's when she strikes near his head, and into the water, creating a rainbow of sorts. Nabaros explains that this is to be expected from a chunk of metal that is his sword. Something like this cannot be called a true weapon, as it only wears down the owner's power. He should watch closely what a real weapon can do. She pulls it out, and in that second, basically splits the lake in two with just one strike. Ronan is extremely shocked by her power, and she notes that perhaps he gets it now, what he is truly missing here. A weapon is categorized as a piece of steel that is sturdy and sharp, and it shouldn't break when wielded. And even if it does, one can just obtain a new one. It is expandable. This is what Ronan thought, until he saw this display. This is just ridiculous, as he is certain that she used the sword that is in her hands. But when he used it, with the same slash, it was much smaller. Nabaros explains that one breath and a handful of strength is all that is needed to put one's life on the line if they are on the battlefield. So wasting strength isn't wise, and if he uses mana, then it is essential he finds a weapon that suits him. Of course, it's something that he still can't get, because he doesn't know how to use mana just yet. Ronan's hand shakes, and he asks her if she knew all of this time. She did, and tells him that even with this, he has a lot of energy, which he finds quite amazing. One day, he will be able to use mana, so in order to use all of that power he has, he needs to have a weapon that suits him. However now, it looks like he has a lot on his mind, so he should attend his class. Ronan asks if he really can, and she notes that he can. Even though those who have reached second year are the ones allowed to, she will make an exception and let him attend. However, instead of that steel shaped like a sword, he should bring a real, proper weapon. That is the only condition for him to attend her class. Ronan explained what happened to his friends, and goes to a blacksmith on his first day off, with Sita also returning. This is the place that Schlieffen told him about when giving him the medallion, so it should be quite good. Asel asks if this is a forge, as it is quite shabby. Maria concurs, as it looks like it could collapse at a moment's notice. Ronan notes that this place was recommended by a noble, so they should go inside already. They do so but find it empty and quite dusty. There is only one door far back in the forge, which opens slowly, and out of it comes a giant wolf man, who asks who they are. Why are they so loud in the middle of the day? Don't they see that the fire is out? Ronan finds it quite fascinating that a wolf beast man is in a forge, who asks them to leave already, as this isn't the time for smithing. Ronan pulls out the Grancia family symbol, and notes that he came here to buy a weapon, as Schlieffen recommended this place heavily. The beastman analyzes all of them carefully, and asks why he would care. Is he a Grancia too, or not? He sighs, and notes that he doesn't know who leaked this place, but he should get lost, as he doesn't serve customers like him. Well, maybe there is a way. If they hand over the arm of that soft-looking guy, they can work something out. He was getting hungry anyways, so this should do quite nicely. Asel is extremely scared, but on the other hand, Ronan is extremely angry. He grabs the beastman's attention and says that he crossed the line way too much. In that second, he strikes him with all of his might, which sends the beastman flying. Ronan notes that something is strange, and the fact that he didn't get slashed is even more so. Out of nowhere, a set of armor appears on the beastman, which surprises Ronan's companions. But not him, as it doesn't matter if he has armor on him, he just needs to break it down to get to the meat. The beastman pleads with him to wait, as this was just a test. Ronan asks him to explain himself, and the beastman notes that they do this to people they have never seen before to test them. It is only protocol to verify their skills. They also wanted to test out his invisible armor, so he provoked him on purpose. He meant no harm to any of them. He promises this. Ronan thinks that this is a very original excuse, but why would he actually believe what he just said? The beastman urges him to think about, wouldn't a smithy used by the great Gracia family have some sort of test like this? If he still doubts him, even now, why doesn't he confirm it with Schlieffen later? Ronan sheathes his sword and notes that the test is quite risky, as he almost died because of it. The beastman laughs and notes that was his own fault for going overboard. He also apologizes to Asel for scaring him like that, and notes that he shouldn't worry, as he doesn't actually eat people. With that out of the way, he presents himself. He is Didikon, and is an apprentice at this forge, and sometimes also the gatekeeper. He asks Ronan for his name, who obliges. He notes that he heard about him coming for a weapon, so he should follow him, as this place is just the entrance. The real place is beyond this door. They all get into a pretty small room, which is empty, and pushes a secret button while telling everyone to be prepared, since they will be witness of something truly extraordinary. The floor starts descending, and Ronan asks what this system is. Didikon explains that it is an elevator made from magic stone and a pulley, the fastest way to get to the real forge. And what they are seeing right now, through the glass, is the largest and best forge in the capital. Grand Carpadoki. Ronan finds something so large existing underground quite ridiculous. Didikon understands why he would say something like that, but he should be excited as he passed the test, and to take responsibility, he will take him to one of the best craftsmen in the whole capital. Ronan looks at all of the blacksmiths working diligently on their various crafts, and is surprised that there were so many in this forge underneath the capital, of all places. Didikon notes that indeed, this is something very precious, and this forge only gives items to the royal family, as well as some selected nobles. Without any discrimination of race or gender, all the skilled master craftsmen are allowed to show their talents in here. However, the best of the best, the one which everyone agrees is the best of all of them, is the elder dwarf, who lives right in this house. He is someone unrivaled in his talents, and a master that has melted metal for well over 400 years. He can also be quite stubborn, since he is so old, but his skills are worth it, so they should respect him, says Didikon, while kicking the door open with full force. Countless weapons and armor lie on the ground, and Didikon says that he has brought some most important guests. The old master tells Didikon off, as he warned him plenty of times to not enter so loudly when he's working, but like the bastard he is, he just doesn't listen. Didikon excuses his behavior by explaining that he had no choice, as there were weapons piling in front of the door, so he couldn't open it like a normal person. He should clean after himself, since he is the elder Doron. He notes that, for one that is so young, he nags like a 100-year-old hag. But besides that, he has brought guests, so he presumes that they are not bad. Didikon explains that it's only natural. He tested this boy directly, and he passed with flying colors, as his sword skills are great, and rather deadly. Doron is surprised by this, as judging by looks only, he looks like a simple child, with a strange companion. He asks Ronan to show him his swordsmanship, as he can tell a lot, just by watching him at work. Ronan obliges and pulls his sword out, but the moment he does, Doron begins analyzing it thoroughly, and eventually breaks it in two, as it is straight rubbish. Everyone from the group is extremely surprised by what just happened, and Ronan gets furious, asking why he did that. Before things can get out of proportion, Doron points to the pile of weaponry on the ground, and tells him to show his skills with one of the swords from there. With the trashy sword that he had previously, he wouldn't have been able to accurately get a sense of his true skill. Additionally, he will give him the sword he chose for free, no strings attached, since any sword he will choose now will be 1,000 times better than the trash he came in with. Ronan wonders if it is so, and looks at Didikon for confirmation, who nods confidently. Without much choice, he picks up one of the swords, and feels that it has a completely different vibe. But will it really be so different from his sword? Ronan warns Doron that if he destroys anything, it's not his fault, but Doron doesn't care, noting that he should do it probably, by putting all that he has into that one swing. Ronan looks at the sword, and thinks about what technique to use. His mind immediately jumps to the technique Nabarose used to split the river, so he accurately copies the movements, and stands ready to strike like he is in a life-and-death situation. Doron recognizes those movements all too well, but before he can stop him, Ronan unleashes the attack forwards, and a large explosion occurs in front of the forge, which grabs the attention of everyone nearby. They wonder what is going on, as it's just midday. Did his blast furnace blow up, perhaps? Ronan stands with the sword still pointed forwards, as he just took out the whole front of the building, and asks, just what the hell happened? He tries to excuse this, as it wasn't his intention, but Doron doesn't care, and recognizes that what he just used was Nabarose's technique. Is he her apprentice, perhaps? Ronan asks if he knows her, and he says that he more than knows her, as he was the one that made the blade that she uses now. Ronan is surprised that he made a sword so stupidly long, and Daron explains that the sword is a secret sword that goes by the name of Urusa. It's one of the few masterpieces that he forged throughout his entire life, and right now, he's holding something that can't even compare, but it feels nice, right? Ronan notes that it actually feels amazing, and at first he didn't think there was much to the sword. Daron says that he should be the one to tell him that, as he thought he was a newbie who couldn't judge his skills well, but in actuality, he is a talented swordmaster, something he hasn't seen in a long time. He pats him on the back with extreme force and tells him that being too talented is also a problem, as it will be hard to forge a sword that can truly be called his, especially since he swung that sword only once, but it's already cracking from the immense pressure. What he needs is not normal materials, but some high-grade steel, and also special material to help it keep steady. Perhaps the byproduct of a wyvern would suffice, as that is extremely resistant. After hearing this, Ronan hands him something that he brought, as he thought it could have been useful, the eggshell, that is now in 2 pieces. Daron attempts to crack the shell with his hammer, but try as he might, he just can't get through it. He is extremely surprised, as this hammer is made out of mithril, but it couldn't make a dent in this eggshell. What is it made out of? He is now extremely excited, and asks if he can really use that most valuable thing in his crafting. Ronan agrees, as it's literally useless for him, but that's enough for him to make a good sword, right? Daron, now more fired up than ever, says that it's plenty, and he should come back in 2 weeks, as a sword that rivals the Empire's best will be in his hands. Ronan notes that he will be looking forward to it, and Daron tells Asel and Maria to go meet with the other masters, as he can't send them back empty-handed, and if they tell them that he was the one who sent them, they will look after them with great care. He would have liked to do it, but at this moment, re-smelting this is his only purpose in life. He smashes it with the hammer, and the others watch with confusion, as he finds way too much enjoyment in this. Below ground, exactly below the group in fact, there is a large tunnel, and a woman notes that she is tired of how the blacksmiths above are extremely annoying beings. The man behind her notes that he feels the same, and he wants to set them on fire now, but she tells him to hold back, as it is not yet time to reveal themselves. It will not be much longer anyways. They will start with these worthless blacksmiths, and then everything in the Empire will be buried under the true light of the world. A few days later, while walking around the school grounds, Ronan thinks about what happened. Daron promised to make him an extremely good sword, worthy of his talent. Additionally, Asel and Maria put in commissions with the craftsmen there, which will be quite expensive, but that doesn't really matter to him, as it's not his money anyway. The only real problem that remains is that it will take an entire fortnight for his new sword to be completed. He wonders what he should do in that time, as both Asel and Maria must be in their respective classes, so he can't call on them. That's when he passes the Galilean building, where there is exclusive training and lectures for the upper-class students. He is pretty sure that Nabarose also has her classes in here too, and she told him to come after he got a real weapon, so he postponed it. But now, he at least has something temporary, so he should go. In that second, Nabarose pops up beside him, and he is extremely scared by this. She pinches his ear off, and notes that it has been a long while since they met. If her memory serves her right, which it does, she told him to come to class the moment he got a new weapon. So what has he been doing all of this time? Skipping class? Ronan tries to explain the situation, but she doesn't listen to a word of his, and continues to pinch his ear off while walking with him towards the building. He starts screaming to let go, and a familiar face hears it, as she was besides the window. That's when someone bumps into her, and tells her to not block the path, and move already. If she has enough time to laze around in here, she should go and prepare for the lesson, like the loser she is. She says that she will go soon, and looks out of the window, as a familiar scene washes over her. In the first sparring room, Nabarose introduces Ronan to everyone else. They probably know who he is already, since he made quite a ruckus during the interview, but she will introduce him to everyone again, since they might not know. He is named Ronan, and from now on, will be attending class with all of them. Ronan bows down and also introduces himself, which makes the other students immediately judge his appearance, with most noting that he looks too frail to be able to do anything, realistically. Ronan can hear everything they are saying, and he's rather annoyed. There are also some welcome faces around here, and some rather unwelcome ones, let's say, so things will be fun. Suddenly someone opens the door, and apologizes for being late. Ronan's eyes widen, as he recognizes that voice. She apologizes again and again for being late, but Nabarose says it's fine, as they just finished introducing the new guy, so she should go say hi. She turns to him and explains that she is the second-year martial arts major, who is also the ta for this class. Her name is Adashan, and it's very nice to meet him. Adashan Akalushia was acknowledged for her incredible commanding abilities, and was the first woman to rise to the Grand Commander role, while also dominating the battlefield with her famous cool-headed judgment and outstanding leadership. Thus, she got the title of the Iron Lady, and those who have been under her direct command always say, "Inside her body runs not blood, but cold and fine iron." Ronan wonders, who would have guessed, that someone as great as her could have such a calm expression. It's very clear that she has no memories of the regression, so she has turned to her original self, and that means that he has to fulfill her request, from way back then, to tell her to just not do anything stupid and become a tailor, like she has always wished to. This puts him into a difficult situation, however, since earlier, everyone was calling her for various things, one to check his technique, one asked to change the towels, and so on. She is extremely busy, it seems. Why is she doing all of these small errands that only an attendant needs to do? Suddenly, someone comes next to him and asks to spar in a duel. He apologizes for being so abrupt with this invitation and introduces himself. He is the third-year Cardin Own, and he has heard about him and how amazing he was during the interview. If the rumors about him really are true, he would like to learn from him, if possible. Ronan notes that he has a lot on his mind right now, but before he can refuse, Cardan apologizes for not coming for a duel with a weapon, so he calls that loser Adashan to bring his weapon. Ronan freezes in place, as who does this bastard think he's calling a loser? Eventually, Adashan arrives with the weapon, but Cardan immediately gets on her case, as she brought a long spear, and he recently switched to a short spear. Is she that stupid, to not remember such vital information? Adashan apologizes, as she saw him a long spear last lesson, so this is why she brought him one. Cardan sees this as her talking back, so he hits her in the head with the wooden part of the spear, continuously. He explains to Ronan that she is someone who doesn't have the right to take this kind of class, and only came here after begging on her knees, that she should be good at chores at least. Ronan is filled more and more with unbridled rage, and eventually he can't contain himself anymore, so he grabs the spear and tells him that they should do it, just like he said. If not, things might become dangerous for everyone. Cardan doesn't understand, but Ronan looks at him with fully killing intent and tells him that they should fight, as he will show him who is the real bastard in this fucking place. Everyone gathers around, and Doran is surprised by what he just heard. Why is he doing this? But he already knows. It's because of that commoner loser behind him. Does he even know her, though? Or are they both lowly commoners? Are they perhaps from the same disgusting commoner family? Ronan hands him his weapon and tells him to just shut up and take his beating with at least a bit of grace, if he doesn't want to end up in a grave. He hits him with a light jab, which sends him flying backwards, and also cracking his spear. Ronan notes that he was whining before, about not getting the right weapon, so he fixed it for him. Doesn't he like that? Cardan sees this as a direct insult to himself, and he charges in out of rage, exuding as much mana as possible, and asking if he really thinks he will be fine after this much disrespect. Ronan stands still while the attack approaches, but before it can even touch a hair of his, he cuts the spears into tiny pieces, and says that he will be very fine, so he should worry about himself more. He hits him with a barrage of attacks, every move being harder and swifter than the last. Eventually he knocks him out fully, and tells him to be thankful that they are in the academy, as if this was outside, his lifeless body would have been thrown to the wolves. Everyone is surprised that Cardan lost, as he was the highest ranked throughout the first years. Ronan notes that it's time to move to the next target, and points at the scamp who complained about the towels. If they smell, she should wash them herself. Why is she making someone else do it for her? Is the assistant instructor her servant or something, huh? Ronan continues to move forwards, but Adashan stops him, as she doesn't know exactly why she's doing this. But it's okay. He should just stop. Ronan tells her once to move, as he can hold back when it comes to other things, but not when she is being looked down on like this. Not by these idiots, not by anyone in this damn empire. Nobody serves the right to do that, after all that she had one. He pushes her out of the way, as these guys deserve a stern beating, one that they will never forget. Suddenly, Nabarose appears behind him, and demands that he stop. She will not ask him to take responsibility for what he did earlier, since in a real battle, that guy would have been long dead. However, if he escalates things like this even further, she can no longer look the other way. He will drop his sword, and walk away. Ronan can't seem to move, and when he looks behind, he sees Nabi-Rose's aura, a giant snake, ready to strike at a moment's notice. He knew that she was strong, but he didn't know that she was this strong, to have this kind of aura. She tells him that what he was going to go through with cannot be considered a spar, and as the person responsible for everyone around here, she cannot let anyone else be injured. Ronan says that she should have known already what the assistant was going through. Up until now, she just stood by and watched everything happen, despite knowing. Nabi-Rose explains that this is between her and the assistant, and it doesn't involve him in the slightest. This is his last warning to stop, or else she will have to deploy drastic measures. Ronan notes that it doesn't matter. If she's the Sword Saint or not, his answer remains the same. Her, and the whole damn empire, can fuck right off. Nabi-Rose says that there is no helping it, and uses the grieving snake on him, something which makes him smile with anticipation. Ronan remembers how he asked Adishan before. Why did she volunteer for the commander position when everybody else declined? At the time, she told him that one day, he will understand eventually, there are some things that he can't force someone else to do. It's his destiny, after all. He was confused by that answer. But what was she thinking, truly? Just what kind of load was she carrying on her shoulders? He remembers when he last saw her. She told him to not forgive her for putting this burned on him, as she doesn't deserve it. He wakes up screaming, and then huffs loudly as he slowly realizes he is awake. Adishan is next to him, and comes close, asking if he has had a nightmare or something. Thank you for watching. See you next time.